Hi, my name is Miss Erin Hiatt, and I will be answering questions that were submitted by the Faith Academy community on today's Faith Asks. What made you pursue graphic design? I was interested in graphic design before I even knew that graphic design existed. When I was a child, I remember creating different designs for our make-believe veterinary clinic or store or school. I always had to make a poster or a sign for the storefront. I've always been interested in that. Even though I was a child, it was just something fun that I really enjoyed. But what really inspired me to pursue graphic design as a career was an assignment that I received in high school. When I was in grade 9, my English teacher created an assignment for us where we had to write the narrative of how our families immigrated to the United States and submit a cover sheet on it. And when I received my assignment back, she had written a note asking if I was interested in media productions class. I decided that I would join, and it turned out to be really awesome. I learned a lot of skills in that class. We created the school yearbook and wrote the school newspaper. That was where I fell in love kind of with communications, but particularly graphic design. And so I started to be able to design a lot of different materials for my school and decided to continue with that. It was something I really enjoyed and at that time felt like I was good at, and I have continued doing that. Have you been professionally trained or did you learn as a hobby? So I think this is a fantastic question. A lot of people who are gifted in art find a strong desire to hone that skill and develop it into something bigger, and that's possible without a formal education. I do think, however, formal education is really important, and so I did study at university. My degree is Bachelor's of Arts in graphic design, and I have a minor in marketing and entrepreneurship. When I went to art school, I was a little bit nervous because I knew that I would have to take extra classes that were not just graphic design related, which is where my skills had already begun to grow. And so I had to take painting, drawing, sculpture, clay, and all of those together really allowed me to become a more well-rounded artist, not just a graphic designer. And so alongside of the graphic design classes I was able to take, I also developed a great sense of color theory, and that has helped me to become a better designer. And I would encourage anyone who's interested in studying art or design or even music or dance to consider getting a formal education, or at least train with some people who know more than you do at this point. What is the best part about Model UN? Model United Nations. It's just great. Everything is great about it. The best part is getting to work together and talk about issues that are real. It's so easy to get together with people and talk about superficial aspects of life. And in Model UN, we talk about issues that are really, really impacting lives of people around us, lives of people in other countries, but also things that are going on in our own lives. We've talked about what's the impact of buying mass manufactured clothing or chocolate or coffee, and what's going on currently with coronavirus and education around the world. And so we're talking about things that are real, and I think there needs to be more of that in the world. What is your favorite country that you've traveled to and why? I've received this question a lot over the years, and I guess the short answer is I don't know. I'm not a great person to ask favorites to. I tend to be really soft-hearted. I never want to devalue the people who I traveled with or the people who I met while I was traveling or the culture. And so this is a hard question for me to answer, but I will answer it. So I would say at this moment, Vietnam is my favorite country that I've visited. First of all, the weather was just beautiful. It was really light. It felt kind of like spring in North America, and that was lovely. And the pace of life was just calm. It was slower than the city where I live. People didn't seem so preoccupied with social media. That was something I really took note of. Loved that. The food was fantastic. Their coffee, fantastic. They have these little buns that are like coffee flavored infused buns that cost maybe 10 cents a piece, and they serve them to you on the street warm, so good, just beautiful. The landscape is beautiful. Everyone was smiling and kind the whole time. It was like calm. It felt like going home. Like it was very warm and welcoming. When you make a design for someone, where do you begin when all you have is a blank slate? Well, I try to make sure that I never have a blank slate per se. I always want to ask questions. My first response really when anyone asks me to create something for them is, what's your purpose? I like to know what they're trying to accomplish with the particular design that they're asking of me. And then I find out who the audience is. Who's going to be looking at this, and will they respond to the message that I'm creating? So sometimes if I'm faced with a blank slate and I don't have an idea, I really think back to what's the purpose, what am I trying to communicate with this design? And then that usually helps me move forward. Occasionally there will be times where I am really stuck, and in those moments I just kind of look back on other designs that I have done before. What have I liked? If I need inspiration from outside designers, I will look at that kind of as supplemental material for what I'm making. But mostly I just think about, what's the purpose? Why am I creating this? And that usually helps me come up with a design. Why is art so hard? I'm so sorry to whoever submitted this, but I understand art can be really, really hard. I think the first would be because it takes skill. I know that there's this common misconception, particularly with modern art, that it's just really easy, that a child could make art, but it really does take skill, and it takes knowledge and how to apply that skill. You can't just whip out some paint and start using it, because different paints interact differently on certain canvases or different materials. Art can be really hard if you don't have those skills or that knowledge yet. So I would say to make it less hard in that area is just to practice, whether it's painting or clay or illustration, photography. Just continue to practice, learn, and just try to continue to be creative, which I think is the other thing in why art can be so hard for some people. There are different ways that you can inspire creativity. Get outside, listen to music, read, open up your sketchbook and just start drawing. You can look at other art for inspiration. Once the pandemic is over, where do you want to travel next? For a long time, my answer to this question has been South America, and it continues to be South America. That is a continent that I have not been to. So many countries there that I have not experienced and that I would like to. How do you wear so many hats? And how do you do it well? Some days I think I don't do it so well. I do have a lot of different aspects to my job, and I also have other ministry work outside of my work at Faith Academy. I just think it's grace. It's God's grace. He asks us to do things for a certain time and in a certain season, and He gives us the ability to do it. So I feel like God has equipped me to be able to do these different jobs and different aspects of my work. I think another part of that is reaching out when I need help, not just wanting to try to do everything and control everything myself, but relying on people who are around me or giving them the opportunity to do something new. It also takes a lot of self-discipline. If I stay up way too late because inspiration struck at the stroke of midnight, that means the next day I might not be so well equipped to do a good job in my work the next day. It takes self-discipline in a spiritual aspect too. I started this a few years back, but when I would receive a new project, I would pray over it and ask God to give me inspiration for the project, that He would allow me to understand what that person was needing the most and how I could use my skills to be able to help solve that. Is there any one thing you do every time you visit a new country? I like to try food. I think trying foods in other countries tells you a lot about culture. I think street food is really the way to go. It's available in most countries. Most countries have their version of street food, and I guess the only rule of thumb is if it smells bad or is covered in bugs, unless it is bugs, maybe stay away. Other than that, I think be adventurous. You're in a new place. Do you edit the videos for the Faith Academy YouTube channel? Some of them, yes. Some of them, no. Depends on what the video is for. and who the audience will be. We have a group of people who work on different things, sometimes outside videographers and editors, and sometimes it is in-house. The current Faith Asks series, though, is a group effort from our publicity committee, which is 2 staff members and 2 high school students, one of which is the main editor for these awesome Faith Asks videos. Our editor is Say Hong. Put a little picture of yourself. So it's a team effort, like most great things are. What is the strangest food you've ever eaten in your travels? So this is a little bit hard for me to answer because I imagine that the people who cooked it or the culture where I ate it, they don't think it's strange. So that can sometimes be a hard distinction. So my answer, I don't know. I ate pigeon when I was in Eastern Europe once, and that was very weird. I would say that was weird for their culture, but also weird for me to know that what I was eating is also referred to as the rats of the sky. Okay, so I just looked up some information on pigeon eating around the world, and it turns out that in quite a few countries, people do eat pigeon normally, and it's not so weird. And even in the United States, where I'm from, people used to eat pigeon. Sometimes this can be described as squab, and that seems a little less crazy to call it. However, I did not eat squab. I ate straight up out of the sky, maybe out of your gutter pigeon. Do you have a favorite artist? I do. My favorite artist is Johann Vermeer. He's a Dutch painter from the Baroque period. He was the painter who created Girl with the Pearl Earring. If you've heard of that, it's most likely his most famous painting. It is also indicative of his style. It was a very subdued style. His color choice was always very calming. I appreciate that as an artist. That's something that I respond well to. He did something different for the time period that he was around and painting in as well. He was painting more of what was going on in everyday real life and painting settings in houses commonly. He would frequently utilize natural light and was actually one of the forefathers of photography. So look him up. How can I make my portfolio better? Such a good question and growth mindset. Something that you can do is ask for other opinions. Ask people who are not artists. Maybe ask your parents or ask your friends. What do they think? How do they respond to? What do maybe they think is a little bit strange? And then ask people who are artists in your life. It doesn't have to necessarily only be your teacher, but if there are other people you know who are artists or who have an eye for art, ask them what their opinions are and what you can do. The second thing that I think is even maybe more important than that outside influence is just not to settle or to think that you've arrived. I know every once in a while you can create something and you just think, oh, this is the drawing of my life, or this is the painting that I've been dying to make. It's exactly what I wanted it to be. I would say continue getting better, trying new things, a new style maybe that you've seen somewhere else, and that will just make you into a better artist and will make your portfolio better. What is one piece of advice you have for Faith Academy students? Keep seeking God and honor others even when you don't feel it, and keep trusting even when it's confusing. I know that this can be really hard to do. I know it's easy to seek after the accolades of the world, accolades of your friends and family, but seeking to honor God and live your life according to His plan for your specific life is the most important thing that I can tell you. Honoring others and finding value and showing them and treating them with the dignity that they deserve as image bearers of Christ is also so important. If God gives such attention to the appearance of wildflowers, most of which are never even seen, don't you think He'll attend to you, take pride in you, do His best for you? What I'm trying to do here is to get you to relax, to not be so preoccupied with getting, so you can respond to God's giving. People who don't know God and the way He works fuss over these things. but you know both God and how He works. Steep your life in God reality, God initiative, God provisions. Don't worry about missing out. You'll find all your everyday human concerns will be met. Thank you so much for submitting your questions so that I could talk to you about design and art and travel. It was really fun to think through the questions and answer them for you. Continue to submit your questions to the Faith Asks series and look forward to more videos just like this.